Greetings Seekers and welcome back to DungeonFog once again. In this video, we are going to be looking at the Shape tool. The Shape tool is basically an extension of the Brush tool in that we can create objects and fill areas on our maps without having to actually draw out in a fully fleshed out room. So we're going to see some features that kind of carry over from the brush tool and the draw rooms tool as well. But there are a few differences that kind of distinguish the shape tool separately from the other tools as well. And we're going to delve into those today. Starting with the shape properties. Now we can create shapes on the map using two methods. The first one is going to be a dotted point or grid method in which we can then trace out an object on our map following the grid lines, similar to how we'd be drawing out a room. As in the case with anything that involves textures. Down here in our fill area, we can go into more detail about choosing which kind of texture we want to use for our shape. For all intents and purposes, for this video, we are going to just leave it on the asymmetric stone tiles, just to illustrate exactly how the shape tool works. But if we ever wanted to change our texture, we could simply click on the name of it, and then go through all of our texture library to pick out one that we want to use. But we're going to stick with this one, just because we're looking at how the shape tool operates, and I've touched on in several videos how to go through and look for different textures that you might want to use, so simply refer back to any of those videos if you need a bit of a refresher on how to actually navigate this menu in more detail. Once we've selected our texture, we simply have to choose our drawing mode, and we are going to illustrate both of them here, starting with, again, the point or grid method. This little red dot will pop up, a little crosshair, and we can start tracing out our shape. And as with the drawing rooms tool, it will create a grid shape along the path that we've highlighted, and then when the area is about to be filled up or the object complete, that orange highlight will pop up, and simply clicking again completes the object. If we wanted to make it less rigid or restricted to the grid pattern that we have on our map, we can select the brush option. As with the brush tool, we can choose our tip type, whether a circle or a square, and then change the tip size or area coverage or the number of squares that the shape will take. So defaults to 2. Let's take a look at maybe just a square. So we can create little block patterns if we want by simply pressing and clicking, or we can drag along and create an entire shape area as such. Once we highlight a specific shape, we can change its rotation, its scaling, and its opacity or transparency based on our desired function for the shape that we have created. Exactly how we'd be doing this in the brush tool, the drawing rooms tool, again, any kind of tool that allows you to manipulate the texture, or in lesser cases, the assets, will allow you to change the rotation, scaling, and opacity of anything you place on the map. You can refer back to the brush tool video where I touch on the color options, how you can manipulate and change the colors of your created objects on the map as well. Our alignment allows us to have the object snap to grid or not. As is the case with anything that you can place down on the map, you can have it snap to grid or have it sit off grid or anywhere you want. Style tool, much like the drawing rooms feature, allows us to create an inner shadow, an outer shadow, and add or remove the outline of the object that we have traced using the shape tool. So to show you what that looks like, let's highlight another object. So this object currently does not have an inner shadow. We can enable that, and you can see that there's a darkened area that appears on the inside of the shape. The outer shadow already exists as it is on by default. We can turn that off, in which case the shaded area outside the object is either on or off. And then the outline. Right beside this object, there is another object that we have placed down with a thick black line around the outside of the shape that we have drawn. The outline adds or removes that thick black line. We can change the layer that this shape sits on. We are going to touch on more of that when we actually delve into the Levels and Layers tool, as I've mentioned on several videos at this point. RGM tools operate the exact same way as any assets or textures do, whether it needs a key, whether we can seal it, or whether it's trapped. Those appropriate features will be enabled when these specific features are selected or deselected, depending on what you want your shape to do. Jitter is something new that appears in the shape tool specifically. And to highlight exactly what that jitter means, we're going to go up to our object here at the top. Once you've chosen to enable or disable the jitter, we can manipulate this in two different ways. The first one is by changing the size or the area coverage that the jagged edge around the object that we've created takes. So by sliding this down, see it decrease or increase. The density refers to the intensity of the jagged edges and exactly how many of those jagged edges will appear per square on the grid that you have drawn. So right now the density is fairly low, which means that there's going to be very little jagged edges appearing in each grid space on the map. But if we were to increase that density, and if we move that slider bar all the way up, suddenly there's far more jagged edges appearing in each grid space along the shape that we have created. So we've highlighted our object down here. We can flip it horizontally. So when we flip it horizontally, it's actually flipping the shape that we've created. When we flip it vertically, it is again manipulating the shape that we've created, not the texture within. If you're looking to manipulate the textures that you've created inside the shape that you have put down on your map, you would want to refer back to the rotation, scaling, and opacity under the fill tool of anything that you've put down. As with pretty much any object that you put on the map, you can also determine whether it will be in some cases, a light emitter, in the case of specific assets, or in the case of any shapes or textures that you put down on the map, you can make them light receivers. You can always refer back to my dynamic lighting video for more information on how the various interactions of light receivers work, either from none, flat, or flat with no prop shadows. I go into some specific detail and examples of exactly how those all interact. The last feature that I want to talk to you about is the Convert to Room feature under the Shape tool. Now, as you can see, it has experimental in brackets with an exclamation mark, and it is indeed absolutely experimental. I've tried this several times outside of recording this video, and unfortunately it causes the system to lag out and in many cases crash. I don't know if there's going to be anything on the roadmap that's actually going to have this working, but I do not recommend using it. Especially because I'm running Opera GX. It is a non-supported browser for this application. But even on Google Chrome or Mozilla Firefox, which are two supported browsers, I do not recommend using the Convert to Room. Essentially what it does is it takes the shape that you've created and you highlighted and converts it into a room that you can then manipulate as though it were something that you trace down using the Draw Rooms tool up here. There we have it, folks. A quick rundown of the Shape tool and how that can all be manipulated. Again, if you have any questions about anything that we've covered so far in any of these DungeonFog videos, please leave a comment down below. I read them, I get them, and I respond to them as soon as I can. So it's a great way to get in touch with me very, very quickly if you have any specific questions, or if you're just interested in learning a little bit more about something in a little bit more detail, if there's something that maybe I've glossed over or something that you're not 100% sure on, and I can maybe even do a follow-up video to give you guys more insight into exactly how everything is supposed to interact, maybe even do an FAQ or Q&A video at the end of this whole series for you guys. So again, comment down below if you do have any questions or concerns. I do read them, I'll get them, and I will respond to them as soon as I can. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate all the support that you're giving the channel. If you have not subscribed already to the channel, you can hit that sub button down below. It helps the channel out immensely. You can always hit the bell icon so you get notified when new videos get uploaded. And all the socials are down in the description below. Hit them up, especially my Twitch channel over at twitch.tv/EsquireVT. I'd love to have you guys check out the live streams that I do when I go live, which is generally every Thursday, and I will see you all in the next